Hi good people, Titus here for another Unreal Engine tutorial, and in this video I'll show you how to create a custom skybox using Cubemaps. A cubemap is a texture that contains 6 individual 2D textures that are stitched together to form a 3D cube. This makes it easy and inexpensive to sample parts of the texture using a direction vector, which gives a properly sampled texture with the correct texel shown. Alright, let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, so we're in Unreal. We're going to create a couple folders here. First one, I'm going to do a Blender folder, because we're going to have a static mesh that I'm going to import. And then we're going to do a Blueprints folder. And then I think we'll also do a Textures folder. Now starting off, we're going to need to create basically a cube map using some images that I got on the web. You can also create these yourselves, I mean, however you want to do it, I guess. But typically your textures, you're going to have 6 individual textures, and then you can use Microsoft Paint or Photoshop or GNU, whatever image software you want. I'm going to use actually GNU. So what we can do is just drag, probably actually make this easier, resize this here. Alright, so starting off, I need the right image first. So I'm going to drag right into the scene. And then after right, I need the left. So I'm going to drag that here. After left is the back image. And then after the back is the front. And then we got the top. And then we got the bottom. And the order does matter. Especially depending on the 3D software you're using, rotation may matter too. With Unreal, Unreal uses Z up instead of Y, so we're actually going to have to rotate some of these around to get our cube to not only assimilate correctly, but also face the correct direction. But I'll show you how to do that. I'll also put on the screen here maybe some B-roll footage that shows how you can tell the directions of the cube maps, and also a website where you can get pre-constructed cube maps, so you can actually do this yourself, or if you have something already in mind, you can do it this way as well. Either way. So we're working with 2048 by 2048 images. So with Unreal Engine, we need to do a little bit of rotation. So I'm going to hide each image here, and we're going to start with the first image, which is our right facing image, or X positive. This one needs to rotate counterclockwise. So I can come into the rotate tool here, and you can just click and hold, or do Shift R. And then I'm going to grab and hold Shift, and then rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then that one's good. Then we'll hit rotate, hide it, and we're going to go to the next one. And the left, or X negative, needs to be rotated 90 degrees clockwise. So hold Shift, rotate it 90 degrees, hit rotate, and then that one's done. And then the back image needs to be rotated 180 degrees. So we can grab this, hold Shift, and just kind of do it like that, and then hit rotate, and then that one's done. The front image is actually good. We can leave this one alone. And then the top image is also good. This is the Y positive, so we can leave that one alone. The bottom image, or Y negative, needs to be rotated 180 degrees. Again, we're doing this because of how Unreal handles, I guess, vectors or up vectors. So we'll hit rotate. So if you're working with other software, you probably won't need to rotate them at all, but the order does matter, how you actually stitch them together. Alright, so now our images are set up. Now let's start making them so they're on one image line. So the way we can do this, since I'm using GNU, I'm going to use make use of the Align tool, which I can come into alignment here, or you can press Q. It has an option to align or distribute relative to, in my case, I'm going to use image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new image. And instead of 2048, because I have 3 alignment options, I have left, center, and right, I'm going to do 3 textures at a time. So 2048 times 3, that's going to give me 6144. And then we got this little layout here. I can then grab the first 3 images, so I'll start with right. We'll go to edit, copy. And then I'm just gonna right click, edit, paste. I'm gonna come down to my layers and click the green button to confirm that layer. I'm then going to right click and get rid of the background because I don't need it. And then using the alignment tool, I can select this image and hit distribute left or align left, either one. And that's gonna push it to the left. And that's what's making this a little bit easier. So I can come back to my image, hide this one, select the next one in the line, and then do copy. And then I can right click, edit, paste, come down here, confirm the layer. I can make sure that's selected, select that image, and then distribute center. So it moves it perfectly center. We'll come back, hide left, and we're gonna go into the back image. We'll right click, copy, and then right click, paste. Now we'll confirm the layer, make sure that's selected, and then I can select the image and distribute to the right. And now this looks correct. Now what we can do is just right click each of the layers and then just do merge down. So it is 1 layer and 1 image, and this one is ready to go. We basically just need to repeat those steps. So we'll do file, new. We'll create a new 6144. And now we're going to do the next 3 images. So we will copy, paste, confirm the layer, select the background, get rid of it, so delete layer, and then select this image, and I can distribute left. And now I can hide this image, go to my top one, right click, edit, copy, right click, edit, paste, confirm the layer. I always like to select the layer too to make sure it knows which one I want. And then I'm going to click the center option, so it lines it up center. And then last image, I'll select bottom, do edit, copy, and then I can edit, paste. Confirm the layer by hitting this green button here. Select that layer, select the image, and then distribute to the right. Now I can right click and just merge down. Now this is 1 image. Now we need to combine these 2 strips into 1 strip, and that's going to be a new image. So we'll do new. Instead of 6144, you would times that by 2, and that's going to give us 12,288. And then we'll click OK. You're going to get a warning that the size is too big. You can just click OK and make it anyways, because we're going to be compressing this later anyways. It is important to note too that when you're doing Cubemaps, because it's a cube, make sure your image is a power of 2. So, you know, like a 512 by 512 or 1024 or 2048, you know, whatever. Typically with SkyMaps, you want to go really high res. So the higher resolution, the better, because then you can downsample it. And because you're not mip-mapping SkyMaps typically, or honestly ever. So it's always going to be 1 level of detail because your character's in the center of the cube. So there's no point to mip-mapping. So that's why you want to get a higher res image and downsample it. So you don't get any, I guess, any fuzziness. But we're going to come here, right click, copy this image, paste it in here. We can get rid of the back. Whoops, we'll confirm the layer. Get rid of this background, and then we'll select this image, distribute left, and then we'll select this one, copy it, and then we will paste it, confirm the layer, select the layer in the image, distribute to the right, and then I can just simply merge down, and now I have 1 strip with all 6 images, which is perfect. That's what I needed. So now I can go to File, Export, and I'm going to call this Cubemap City, and then I'll call this GNU, because this is my GNU export. The export's going to take a while because it is it's a lot of images, so that's normal. So I'll probably go ahead and speed this up. All right, our export finished. We can now take a look. We have our first cube map file. You can see it's about 24 megabytes, so almost just under. So now we have a strip. We need to actually make this using into a cube map. There's a number of different ways you can do this. You can use an AMD tool, but I'm going to use the NVIDIA tool, which is free. It also has a plugin available for Photoshop, so if you do work in Photoshop, it is a little bit easier for you. Otherwise, you can download the standalone NVIDIA Texture Tools exporter. And it's pretty simple. As long as you're using a file, it'll recognize it as a cube map. So when we drag it in here, you'll notice on your texture types, you'll have 2D texture, but you should also have an option for cube map. If you don't see that, it's because maybe your images aren't in powers of 2, or you didn't have 6 images on one strip, or you didn't follow the format. So that option will only show up if it is a valid file. So just a heads up on that. The other thing we need to be aware of is when you import your image, you can see this one is shifted on its side. That is correct for Unreal Engine. If you're using something else, that is probably not going to work, and you want to go back to your imaging software, instead of doing the rotations, you will probably want to keep them all pointing up. It's just the way Unreal does it, or handles its importing. It's just a little bit off, so that's why we need to do it this way. But the other thing to note is when you look around, it should be seamless, so the image should make sense. If it doesn't, it means you have the orientations or something off. So something slightly, you basically rotated something wrong, or you didn't have it lined up right. So just kind of go back and kind of mess with it. And you can usually get it after some trial and error. In terms of settings, for Unreal Engine, the format for the compression, Unreal, as far as I know, only supports 32 BP unsigned BGRA. So you'll want to swap that here. For the generate bitmaps, we can disable that because we only have one level of detail in a SkyBox. So there's, and that's mainly because your point of reference is the center of the cube, so it doesn't really, you're not really zooming in and zooming out, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to map that. You're not going to get the advantage of it. And that's pretty much it. You can add additional effects if you wanted to. You know, if you're looking to do something weird with your SkyBox, that might be fun. Otherwise, these settings should work, and you can just save the file. And we will call this, we're going to do the type DDS, and we'll call it Cubemap City, and I'll call it NVIDIA. And when we actually show that file, you can see it's 96 megabytes, so it's a pretty chunky file. We can go back to Unreal, and we can actually import the cube map now. So let's go to our textures folder. We'll drag this in here. And then when you open it up, you should notice the actual image of your, whatever you're doing. It should look perfect too, like it should make sense. So if it doesn't, or if it's smeared, or you have any other weird issues, again, that's rotation. So you just have some of the textures rotated wrong, or oriented wrong, or positioned incorrectly. And I'll, actually, I think I have the picture right here. All right, there we go. All right, so I have a demonstration of how your cube map should look, basically. The arrow basically dictates the top of the picture. So you notice the X positive, or the right side image, needs to be counterclockwise, 90 degrees. And then the X negative or left needs to be clockwise 90. Z negative back needs to be 180. And then the Z positive, Y positive, they're good how they are. And then the last image, or the Y negative or the bottom, needs to be 180. And generally, if you follow this format on any of your cube map textures, they'll be correct. So, you can just pause the video here, just grab a screenshot of that, and that should hopefully help you out a little bit. But let's actually create this thing in Engine now. So we can right-click, create a material. I'm going to open this material up. It's going to give me an error. If I go to the material graph, it's a texture sample, which expects an X and a Y, but a cube map has X, Y, and Z, so of course that's not going to work. So we can drag off of this and do a reflection vector world space, which has a X, Y, and Z. It doesn't know the position, so it's just kind of guessing and putting it in there. So you can zero everything out with a constant 3. So just hold 3, click in the graph, oops, and then leave the values at 0, line them up, and then it'll perfectly set up the image the way it should be. And then the other thing I would say is probably put this as an emissive color, and then maybe set the shading model to unlit. And then that's usually pretty good. So you can see here we have a good representation of our material. And if I zoom in, you can actually see kind of what the SkyBox is going to do. So let's go ahead and actually set that up. When we do this, there is another setting here called two-sided. You will probably want that checked because if you don't, you would have to make sure you flip the normals of your static mesh that you're going to use here, and I'll kind of point that in a second. So let's go ahead and go to our blueprints folder. Let's create a new blueprint class. We'll do of type actor, call BP_SkyBox. Open this up here, and if I go to the default scene route and I add a cube, I can then go to the material and tell it to use the Cubemap city. And you can see it kind of looks correct. The next things we'll want to do is you want to disable collision. So under collision presets, you don't want any collision. You also don't want any shadows. So cast shadows, turn that off, because when light hits the outside of the cube, it'll basically just make everything dark that's inside of the cube, so you probably don't want that. And then for the scale, I'm actually going to scale this to 10, so you can see the issue that it's going to have here. So let's compile and save. And for our default scene, we need to get rid of some of this extra stuff, so let's get rid of the height fog. We'll get rid of the process volume, the atmosphere, skylight. Sky sphere can go. Basically just have a directional light. That's all you really need to make sure you can see your items. And then we can drag this blueprint and we'll put it maybe right here. And I'll drag it up a bit. All right. So looking at the cube, it looks good from the outside, but when we go inside of it, we can't see anything. So why is that? If I go to the material and I check two-sided and then save that, I can then go inside and you see the material is correct. And that has to do with normals. So to demonstrate why that is, I have Blender here, which is my 3D software. Every static mesh has normal direction. So the blue represents like the good side, and in Blender, the red represents the bad side, so the side that you won't typically see. For this example, a better way to do it is to invert the normals. So in Blender, you can select everything and do Shift N to recalculate the normals to be inside out. And the reason you want to do that is because we're inside the cube. The cube is our skybox, and we're looking at the inside faces of the cube. So we want to apply the texture there, not on the outside. So if you don't want to do that in your 3D software and export the model, you can just tell the material to write the texture to the inside and the outside. It's a little bit more expensive, but you know, you can get away with it. But a better way is honestly just to import a static mesh with flipped normals. So I actually have a cube box here that I can bring in, import that, and let's go back to that material and uncheck two-sided, save. And now if I go inside, you'll notice it stops working. But if I go to my blueprint, I get rid of this. Actually, for this cube, I think I can just select this cube here, load it in lieu of this cube, compile, save. and because it has flipped normals, it's gonna work. So you can see it's the outside. It kind of spawned me inside, so it threw me off. So we can see it from the outside in, but if I go inside, it looks just fine as well. And you can see here, I do not have two-sided checked. So that is probably the proper way to do it, I would say. And then if you're happy with your sky map, what you can do is with your sky map selected, you can zero it out. So put it at world origin, right? And then you can come into your blueprint and you can just scale it up to the size of your map. Say I do 100 units, compile, scale, hit play, and now you can see we are inside the world. Now you may run into issues where you have some like in-scattering, shadowing, or some weird lighting artifacts on the cube surface. If you do, just come to your environmental light mixture and you can just bring down the specular scale to 0. And then that'll usually clear up any weird lighting artifacts. The nice thing about this solution too is you're still using your regular lighting, so you can select your directional light, Control L, Alt L, and move your lighting source around, and you can get whatever interesting lighting effects you want. Even change the intensity of the color to match the scene maybe. And then you can get, whatever you're going for, I guess. And then other things you can do too, depending on the texture. If you get a real high res texture, you probably won't have to do much, but sometimes there's some weird artifacting. You actually go to the image and adjust some of these settings. The MIP general settings should probably be no MIP maps. I don't think it's needed. Your texture group, you can set that to a SkyBox. And then your compression settings, I would probably set it to user interface 2D and then save that. And you may or may not notice an improvement on the scene, depending on how high quality your textures are to begin with. So, but yeah. And then I think that's pretty much it. So, all right, good people. I think we'll cut it here to keep the video short, but I hope you found some informative value in this topic that you can take into your own projects. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.